Question number one. Question number one wants us to evaluate this quadratic function. So all I'm going to do is that anywhere I see x, I'm going to replace with a parentheses, and inside of it, I'm going to plug in the negative 8. So I'd have negative, parentheses squared, plus, in front of this x is a 1, so plus 1, parentheses, plus 15, and inside of that parentheses, I'm going to plug in negative 8. So I plug in negative 8, plug in negative 8. Now I calculate. So I first do the exponent, so negative 8 squared is negative 8 times negative 8, which is a positive 64, because a negative times a negative is a positive. In front of here is also a negative 1, so when I multiply that 64 by negative 1, I get negative 64, okay? Here I don't see any exponents, and now all I just do is multiply. 1 times negative 8 is negative 8, and then the 15, there's nothing I'm multiplying it by, you bring it down, okay? Negative 64 minus 8 is negative 72. Negative 72 plus 15, I think, is negative 57. Okay? Next question. So the next question wants us to subtract this from this. Whenever you see this word problem and you're subtracting something from something else, you always write the second equation first. So I'd have negative 8 x squared plus 8x minus 10. And then subtracting negative 9x squared plus 4x, okay? Whenever there's a negative right here and you distribute that negative, it makes this negative turn to a positive 9x squared, makes this positive turn to a negative 4x. Everything in the first parentheses, you always bring it down, okay? Now we're going to combine like terms. So this and this are like terms, so when we combine them, negative 8 plus 9 is positive 1x squared. Here we have an 8x. Here we have a negative 4x. 8 take away 4 is positive 4x. The negative 10 has no like term, so you bring it down. So again, just like that. Okay? The next question. The next question wants us to multiply binomials. So we're going to have to go ahead and distribute. 3x times x is 3x squared. Alright, because technically in front of this x is a 1, and 1 times 3 is 3. 3x times negative 8 is negative 24x. Now we're going to distribute the negative 3. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 8, and negative times a negative gives me a positive 24. These are the only two like terms, okay? So those are the only two you're going to combine. The 3x squared, you're going to bring it down because there's no like term. You combine these, you get negative 27x, okay? And then the positive 24, you bring it down. So again, just like that. The next question, so it wants to solve and graph this on the number line. So when you're solving, you're trying to get the value of x, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 8. So again, that's the number that doesn't have the letter attached. That gets canceled. The negative 3x, I bring it down. The greater than sign, I bring it down. 5 take away 8 is negative 3. Okay? Now I'm going to divide by negative 3. Divide by negative 3. When you divide by a negative, this operator goes the other direction. So we'd have x is now less than negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a positive 1, because a negative divided by negative is a positive. So now you figure out if it's open or closed. If you have a greater than or a less than sign, it's open. If you have a greater than or equal to or a less than or equal to, it's closed. So because this is a less than with no line underneath, I'm going to go to positive 1, and I'm going to make it open. And then I'm going to shade the direction it's pointing. This looks like it's pointing to the left, so I'm going to shade everything to the left. All right? And it makes sense because it says x is less than 1. All the numbers less than 1 are negative numbers, or 0. So the next question. So the next question, we're going to solve the absolute value function. When there is no numbers on the outside of the absolute value, you can just go ahead and solve by making this number either a positive number or a negative number. So we have 5c minus 6 is equal to a positive 31, or 5c minus 6 is equal to a negative 31. Now you go ahead and get your two answers, because again, an absolute value function gives you how many answers? Two answers. So I would add 6, cancel, We have 5c is equal to 31 plus 6 is 37. Now you divide by 5, divide by 5. You can't divide by 5, so c is equal to 37 over 5. Okay? Here you'll do something similar, plus 6, cancel. So now we have 5c is equal to negative 31 plus 6 is negative 25. Now I divide by 5, divide by 5. So my c is equal to a negative divided by positive would be a negative. 25 divided by 5 is 5. These are my two answers. Okay? Next question. So the next question says we need to rearrange this equation that's given right here to solve for f. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do, guys, is I'm going to rewrite my equation. Okay? So that I can be able to look at it a little bit more clearly. And I'm going to solve for f. So I need to get this f all by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is that the fraction is outside of the parentheses. So I need to get rid of the fraction first by multiplying by 9, multiplying by 9. Okay, so the multiply gets rid of the fraction. So now we have 9c is equal to the multiply, cancel that fraction. So now I have 5 parentheses f minus 32. Now I need to get rid of this 5 because it's outside of the parentheses. So we have to get rid of things outside of parentheses first. To get rid of that multiplying by 5, you divide by 5, divide by 5. So now we have 9c over 5 is equal to the divide cancel the multiply. Again, divide is the opposite of multiply. So we're left with f minus 32. So now to get the 32 to the other side, you do the opposite of subtracting 32 by adding 32. That gets canceled. So your f is equal to 9c over 5 plus 32. I can't add the 32 to the 9 or the 5 because they're not like terms. So again, just like that. So the next question says, what is the equation of the line that is parallel to this equation that travels through this point? Okay, so when we're doing parallel, guys, we need to firstly try to get it in the form y equals mx plus b. Alright, so to do that, I will subtract 6x, that gets cancelled. The positive y, you bring it down. You can't subtract, so you write minus 6x and a positive 8. In front of this y is a positive 1. You can divide by that positive 1, but again, if you divide by that positive 1, everything will still stay the same. So we have y equal negative 6x, because a negative divided by positive is a negative. Negative 6 divided by 1 is negative 6. And then normally you divide this, but we don't care what this is. I replace it with the letter b. Okay? So now I need to do parallel. The word parallel means same slope. The word parallel means same slope. So that means that this slope, this negative 6 stays the same. So when I do parallel, okay, this will stay as y equal negative 6x plus b. Okay? So all I gotta do now is plug in these numbers for x and y. So again, this is your y, this is your x. So I replace my y with negative 7 equal negative 6. I replace my x with 1 plus b. Alright, so then now the negative 7, I bring it down. Here I multiply, and I get negative 6 plus b. So now I add 6, and that gets cancelled. So b is equal to negative 7 plus 6 is negative 1. So that negative 1 replaces this b right here. So my answer is y equal negative 6x and negative 1. Alright, next question. The next question wants us to do perpendicular. Alright, so first we need to get it in the form y equal mx plus b. Okay, so then to do that, I will subtract 3x, that gets cancelled. The 5y, I bring it down. We can't subtract, so I write minus 3x and a positive 40. So now I divide by 5, divide by 5, divide by 5. So now we have y equal, can you divide? No, so I leave it as negative 3 over 5. And a negative divided by positive stays as a negative. Normally you divide this, but we don't care what this is. I replace it with the letter b. Okay? So now we're going to do perpendicular. So perpendicular means you do the opposite reciprocal of your slope, which means that you change the sign, flip the number. Change sign, flip number. Alright, so whatever sign this is, you're going to change it. So we're going to do perpendicular. So I change the sign, so it's going to go to a positive. Flip it, it's going to go to 5 over 3. Okay, and that's my perpendicular slope. Now I plug in my x and my y. So instead of y, I replace it with 5. Okay, equal 5 over 3. Parentheses, because this is a fraction, instead of just plugging in 6, I'm going to plug in 6 over 1 plus b. So we have 5 equal, I multiply these two, I get 30. Multiply these two, I get 3 plus b. 30 divided by 3 is 10. So I have 5 equal 10 plus b. So the final step would be to subtract 10, subtract 10. So your b is equal to 5 minus 10 is negative 5. Alright, so this negative 5 replaces the b right here in your perpendicular. The same way how this negative 1 replaces the b right here in your parallel. Okay, so my answer, I'm going to write it right here. Y equal 5 over 3x. And instead of plus b, I write minus 5. Alright, so again, just like that. Okay, so the next question says write the linear equation from a table. So again, we need to make sure it's in the form y equal mx plus b. Alright, so this time you're going to write an equation y equals something x something. So first we're going to try to find our slope. To find your slope, you look at the change in y over the change in x, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's how you find slope. Okay? So when I do this, I now write a fraction, a minus sign in between, and two sets of parentheses on the right side. So this is your x1, this is your y1, this is your x2, this is your y2. So I plug my x1 down here. So I plug in negative 3, and then the y goes on top of it, so the 1 goes on top of it. Plug in my x2, which is negative 2, and the y goes on top of it, which is that 5. Okay, now I calculate. 5 minus 1 is 4. Here I have negative 2 minus negative 3. A negative, this side of negative turns into a positive. Negative 2 plus 3 is positive 1. 4 divided by 1 is 4. So your slope is 4. So now we're going to find the b value, the y-intercept, and we're going to do it like when you do parallel and perpendicular. We're going to have y equal 4x plus b. Now you're going to plug in a point. So I'm going to plug in 2 and 21. Okay. So I'm going to plug in 2 for the x and 21 for the y. So I have 21 equal 4 parentheses 2 plus b. Alright. So the 21, I bring it down. 4 multiplied by 2 is 8 plus b. So now we take away 8, take away 8. So the b is equal to 21 minus 8, I believe, is 13. 13. Okay, so my y-intercept or my b would be positive 13. Okay, so this is all you type in for the answer, just this part right here. So the next question, it says graph the absolute value function. When you're graphing the absolute value function, first you need to find your vertex. To find your vertex, okay, you do the opposite of this number, same as this number. Alright? So opposite of a negative 4 is a positive 4. Same as a positive 1 is a positive 1. So now I graph that on my axis right here. I go to positive 4 for the x, positive 1 for the y. Alright? So now I'm going to plug in numbers to the left of this point and to the right of this point. To the left of this point would be 3, then 2, then 1. So that's to the left. 3, 2, 1. And then to the right would be 5, 6, 7. So then to the right, I would have 5, 6, 7. Okay? So what I need to do is that I need to find the y values that go with these, because these are just the x values. To find the y values that goes with these, you just plug them into the equation. So in your calculator, you would type this part right here. You would type 2 absolute value, replace the x with a parentheses, minus 4 absolute value plus 1, and then you plug in each of these numbers. So you plug in 3, then 2, then 1, all right, and then graph each of these points. I'm going to pause the video and fill up. All right, so after I did all of those, guys, these are the points that I got. So when I plugged in 3, I got 3, 2, I got 5, 1, I got 7, 5, I got 3, 6, I got 5, 7, I have 7. So I just go ahead and plot my points. So 3, 3, and then 2, 5, and then 1, 7. Then I plot 5, 3, 6, 5, and then 7, 7. Okay, and then I click done plotting, and I start all the way at the top, go all the way to this point, and then go all the way back to the top. Okay, so the next question. So the next question wants to determine whether something is a function or not. Okay, so whenever you want to determine if something is a function or not, you have to remember that x values cannot repeat. Okay, so again, x values cannot repeat. Okay, so if it repeats, it's not a function. If it doesn't repeat, it is a function. So we're going to look at the x values. So I'm going to look at the 2, the -1, the -7, and the -7. Because we see 2 -7s as the x values, this is not a function. Okay? Here we have 3, 8, -6, -8. So nothing repeated here. Okay? So this one is a function. Here we have -7, 3, 7, 1. So in this case, alright, nothing repeated. So this is a function. Here we have 1, -7, 8, -9, nothing repeated. So this is a function. But the question says which one is not. So the answer would be this one. Okay? If you have a graph, you do something called a vertical line test. It means that you draw a vertical line in your graph. If it hits it more than once, it's not a function. Okay? And if you saw something that looks like this, you draw your vertical line and it hits it once, this one is a function. Okay? So next question. So the next question, question 12, says solve the system by graphing. So when you're solving the system by graphing, you have to make sure that you know how to graph it using the form y equal mx plus b, right? This is already in that form, so you always graph your y-intercept first, okay? So I graph my -2 on my y-axis because that's the intercept, it's on the axis. Then you ask yourself, what does my slope mean to me? So my slope is the 2 over 1, because again, when you don't see a denominator, it's a 1. So you would have to use your rise over run. Your rise tells you up or down, run tells you left or right. 99% of the time you're going to the right. Because a +2, you go up twice, and then you go to the right once. So we go up, 1, 2, right once. Okay? And you just draw your line. Okay? So now we're going to try to graph this, but it's not in the form y equal mx plus b. So I'm going to subtract 2x, that gets cancelled, bring this down, bring down the 3y, we can't subtract, so we bring down the -2x, bring down the +18, now we divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3 to get rid of that multiply. So y equal, can we divide? No, and a negative divided by positive stays as a -2 over 3. Here you would divide it because we're not doing parallel and perpendicular, so this will give me +6. Now I graph it. So I graph the +6 first. Okay, so +6 looks like it'll be here. Now you ask yourself, what does my slope mean to me? So I have -2 over 3. The -2 means down 2. And we're going to go right 3 times. So down 1, 2, right 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Alright, so then you connect your lines together. And then wherever they intersect is the solution. You don't always have to have a point where they intersect. As long as where they intersect, that is the solution. So X marks the spot. So this looks like the answer would be, that looks like 4, and then the Y looks like 4. So this looks like 4, 4. Okay? So the next question. So we're trying to solve the system by doing something called elimination. When you're doing elimination, you need to look at the first number in your first equation, multiply your second equation by that same number. So same as the number at the top. Okay, I look at the number at the bottom equation, and I multiply the top by the flip of the sign of that number. Okay, so same as the top, flip the bottom. Same as the top, flip the bottom. Alright, so now I multiply. Negative 2 times 4x is negative 8x. Negative 2 times negative 1y is positive 2y. Negative 2 times positive 11 is negative 22. Now I distribute the 4. 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times negative 4 is negative 16y. And then 4 times negative 26 is negative 4 carry 2, 104, I think. Alright, so now I calculate. That gets cancelled. 2y minus 16y is negative 14y. Negative 22 minus 104 is negative 124. Now we're going to get rid of that multiply by dividing by that negative 14. Not the y, just the number, the negative 14. So we have y equal to, I believe that might be 6, maybe 6. 6 4 is 24. Okay. 6 or 8, I'm not sure. So in actuality, you would have gotten 9 when you plug it in your calculator. Alright? So all you gotta do now is plug it into your second equation. So I have 2x, and I'm gonna replace the y with this number 9. So I replace y with 9 equal negative 26. That 2x, I bring it down. Here I multiply, I get negative 36 equal negative 26. Now I add 36, that gets cancelled. Now we have 2x equal negative 26 plus 36 is 10. Now I divide by 2. So your x is equal to 10 divided by 2 is 5. So you put your answer as 5 and then 9. So that's the answer. Okay? So the next question. So we're going to try to graph it and then shade. Okay? So they're already in the form y equal mx plus b, so I can go ahead and graph the y-intercept first. So I graph my negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now my slope is a negative 1 over 1. The negative 1 means you go down once, and then we go right once. So down once, right once. Okay? Now you need to figure out the type of line you're going to have. If you have a greater than or less than sign, alright, that means it's going to be a dotted line because it's open, alright? It means that those numbers are not going to be included in your set of solutions, okay? Alright, so now we're going to shade. It says that y is greater than, so again, this is greater, okay? And then this is less, okay? Because this looks like an L, this doesn't look like an L. The one that looks like an L is less. The one that doesn't is greater. So if I'm greater than my line, that means that I'm above or on top. If I'm greater than you, I'm on top of you. Alright? So I'm greater. Okay? So I'm going to be on top. So that's where you shade. Now we're going to graph our next line. You graph the 1 first. Positive 1 is here. Now you do your slope. Your slope is 1 over 4, which means you go up once, right 4 times. So we go up once, right 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Now you figure out the type of line you're going to have. Whenever you have a greater than or equal to or less than or equal to with a line underneath means a solid line because those numbers are included in your set of solutions. So I will graph a solid line. Okay. Now I'm going to shade. This looks like an L, so that means it's less than. So if I'm less than my line, that means I'm below it. Alright, if I'm less than you, that means I'm under you. Okay, I'm weaker than you, I'm smaller. So I'm going to shade below. And then now you're going to look for a mixture of 2 colors. So there's not a mixture here, there's no color here. Down here in this V, alright, would be, so in this like weird looking V is only the black. Here, up here is only the red. Over here is the mixture of 2 colors. So you pick any point that's over here. So a point I would pick is maybe like positive 7, negative 3, or positive 8, negative 1. Alright, anything that's over here. Alright, this looks like positive 9, negative 6 maybe, or negative 4. positive 9, negative 4. Any one of these can be the solution. Alright, I'll go with 8, negative 1. Alright, so the next question. So what we're trying to do is that we're writing the equation of an exponential function. The general form for all exponential functions is y equal art. Okay? So the y represents your total, the a represents your initial value, and the r represents your rate. T, we should know, is time. Alright? So what we're going to do is that we're going to write an equation y equal some initial value, some rate over some period of time. Okay? So the question reads, a new car is purchased for $20,700. The value of the car depreciates by 13.75% per year. What will the value of the car be to the nearest cent after 12 years? All we're doing is writing the equation. We're not solving it. Okay? So I'm going to find my initial. The initial is what we started with. So we started with purchasing the car at $20,700. Okay? The next thing that's easy to find is the amount of time. It says 12 years, so 12 with the amount of time. Okay? Now we're going to calculate the rate. So it says that we're depreciating. Depreciate sounds like decrease. If you're D anything, that no means that you're taking away from it. So this would mean that I'm doing some type of subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 13.75. But what am I subtracting it from? Well, the total amount of percentage is always 100%. Okay? So 100 minus 13.5 would be 86.25, I think. Alright? So then now I move the decimal point 2 times to the left because we don't want a percent, we need a decimal. So it'll be 0.8625. And then you put a 0 here as a placeholder. So my rate will actually be 0.8625. And then again, that would be the solution. And if you wanted to solve this, you just put this in your calculator. So the next question says, what is the equation for the table below? Okay, so this equation is going to be exponential. It's going to look similar to this formula, where in actuality is going to be y equal a parentheses b to the exponent x. Alright, where y represents the total, similar to the one before. A is the initial. Alright, b is the rate. X in this case is just going to be the exponent, and it will always stay that same. So we're going to have y equal some initial value, some rate. X stays the same all the time for this question. Alright, so what we need to do is that we need to first define my initial. To find your initial, you need to look at the y value when x is 0. So that would be here. So when x is 0, the y value was 1. So I put 1 here as my initial. That's where I started. Alright, so again, that's my initial amount. Okay, so then now I go ahead and find my b, my rate. To find your rate, you need to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Alright, or do the difference between them. Okay, so again, you could do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Actually, guys, you wouldn't use this in reality. All you do is just divide your two y values or any two consecutive y values. Alright? So you could do this divided by this, or this divided by this, or this divided by this. You just divide your consecutive y values. So you could do 8 divided by 4, 4 divided by 2, and then 2 divided by 1. You should get the same number every time. 8 divided by 4 is 2, 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2 divided by 1 is 2. Alright, so your rate or your b will be 2. Okay, so you just type this part in the equation. X always stays as the exponent. Okay, so again, you divide this by this, this by this, this by this. You should get the same number. Alright, so the next one, we're trying to solve the quadratic by factoring. So first things first, I need to make sure that everything is on the same side. So I'm going to subtract 7x from the like term, so from the x term. And then I'm going to add 6. And I add 6 to my constant, so the number that doesn't have a letter. This gets cancelled, this gets cancelled. It leaves you with nothing. 0 represents nothing. The x squared, I'm not adding or subtracting anything to it, so you bring it down. Here I am subtracting. Negative 5x minus 7x is negative 12x. Here I am adding. 29 plus 6 is 35. Okay, So now I got to put it into factored form, which is 2 pairs of parentheses, okay? To get an x squared, I need 2 sets of x's. Now I find all the numbers that give me 35, which is 1 and 35, 5 and 7. To get a 12, I will pick 5 and 7, okay, because 5 plus 7 is 12, okay? So now I need to figure out the signs. When it's positive here, it's same signs. Whatever sign this has, that's the same signs it will have. A -7 and a -5, all right? You can always check it to see if your answer is correct, okay? By doing -7 plus 5, that's -2, you need a -12. +7 minus 5, that's +2, you need -12. -7, -5 is what will give you -12, because a +7 and a +5 will give me +12. So again, this was the only option I could pick, okay? Or you could just use my hints, okay? So when it's positive, same signs. If it was negative here, it's different signs, okay? All you got to do now is set them equal to 0 or flip the signs. So this would be +7, this would be +5, or you could write -7 equals 0, +7 plus 7, x is 7, and then x minus 5 equals 0, +5 plus 5, x is 5. Alright, so again, either methods work. You could flip the sign, that's the easier way, or you could do this, which is the more mathematical way. Alright, so just like that. So the next question says that we're doing exponential rules, product rule. Product means that we're going to do some type of adding of exponents. Okay, so we add exponents. Okay, but what do you do with the numbers? Well, you multiply the numbers first, then we add exponents. In front of here is a -1. So I'm going to multiply this and this together because those are like terms. They're not exponents. They're just coefficients. So I multiply the -1 and a -4. Then I multiply the letters with the exponents together. So t to the 8th and t to the 3rd. -1 times -4 is +4. T to the 8th times t to the 3rd. When you multiply things that have the same base, which is the t, you add exponents. So 8 plus 3 is 11. Alright, just like that. So the next one, we're doing exponential rules, but this time we're doing quotient rule. Quotient rule means you subtract exponents. So we're going to subtract exponents. Okay? So the first thing we have to do, however, is that I see parentheses. I need to do something with the parentheses first before I can do anything else. So whatever doesn't have the parentheses, we're going to rewrite it the same for now. Where we see a parentheses, we need to do something with it. So the number that's not inside of parentheses, I rewrite it the same. Alright. Here I see an exponent on the inside and on the outside. When you see something like that, you're going to actually do something called power rule, which means you multiply the exponents. So this would be u to the 2 times 5 is 10. Okay? So now I can go ahead and solve. Okay? So firstly, we're going to try to see if we can simplify the numbers. What number can you divide 15 and 3 by? Alright? I can divide them by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So this would be 5, and then this would be 1. You simplified right here. Now we're going to write out the amount of u's I have. I have 2 u's right here. I have 10 u's right here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now I'm going to cancel out the amount that I can. So I can cancel 1, and I can cancel only 2. So that means I have only the 5 left at the top, the 1 right here at the bottom, and then I'm going to count the amount of u's I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 u's. So that's u to the 8th. And this will be the result. Okay? So the last question, so we're trying to divide polynomials by a monomial. Right? So a polynomial can mean many terms. A monomial means one term. Okay? However, when you're dividing by this number by itself or this monomial, this 6 is a common denominator. It's a denominator for each of these that's separated by the addition signs or the subtraction sign. So what I could do is I could rewrite this as 30x squared y to the 3rd before the addition sign over 6, then positive 48 x squared y squared all over 6, then positive 42 xy all over 6, then negative 12 all over 6. Okay? So that I can be able to evaluate each of them separately. Okay? So here we're going to divide. So negative 30 divided by 6 is negative 5. Because we're not dividing by any x's, our x squared stays the same and our y cubed stays the same. Here we're going to just divide, so I'm done with this. So now I'm going to divide the 48 by 6, and I think I get 8. Okay? A positive 8, because again you divide a positive by a positive. We're not dividing by any x's, so the x squared stays the same, the y squared stays the same. Here I divide, so I'm done with this. Here I divide 42 by 6, I get positive 7. Positive divided by positive is a positive. I didn't divide by any x or y, so my xy stays the same. Now I'm done with that. Now I'm at the final term. Negative 12 divided by 6 is negative 2, because a negative divided by positive is a negative. Alright, and there's no x's or y's, so I don't need to write any x's or y's. So all of this is my result.